name is Angelica. I work for UNDP and GEF Small Grants Programm. We are actually working with the youth from the bottom up. We're supporting them in doing initiatives in their communities, and I will speak about that. And I would like to present also my colleagues, Miroslav here, who is working for the Association for the Advancement of Innovative Approaches to Global Challenges, and he will share their very interesting ideas on the global framework for youth participation, which I find is something very new and interesting. And we have Timothy here who represents YOUNGO. And this session is organized by United Nations Joint Framework Initiatives on Children, Youth and Climate Change, and also which is supported by UNFCCC and our colleague Adriana, who is sort of watching us from afar. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to come, but I find also that this initiative is supporting many new interesting events on youth engagement in global forums, including COP21, COP20, and we can talk about it. That's, on one hand, there's also this PR, but it showcases the real work that youth are doing, and in the form of video and social media. And so I think it's very important and interesting. And I hope this session also we'll have some kind of a brainstorming. The aim of this session to see how truly youth can be engaged in climate change work, because climate change is one of the few problems specifically relevant to the youth, because it's such a long-term problem that young people and even our children will be dealing with this problem long after we leave all this in this mess. So I think this session would be very interesting. I find also our work with youth is one of the most dynamic and interesting parts of our work. So I'm really looking forward to exchanging opinions. And thank you very much for coming. Now I would like to present Miroslav. Maybe he'll say a few words, and we'll show you a video. Hopefully we can see from you.
Thank you very much, Angelica. Welcome everybody also on behalf of myself and my organization, IAAI GloCha. Welcome also to all the virtual participants. Austin is so kind in helping us with the web streaming over YouTube Live. And it's a pity we don't have here now the facilities for PowerPoint presentation, and because on our agenda is now a video of the UNFCCC Action for Climate Empowerment Program, which is also handling the youth engagement activities, Adriana Valenzuela. I have the video on my computer and I will show it to you. It will be difficult to see, but just that you have an impression about the type of video reporting there is on the internet from the UNFCCC program about youth engagement, and so that after this event you can also yourself go on YouTube. Climate Conference is the video channel, and there is a documentation about Young and Future Generations Day that Adriana asked us to present here. So I hope that you just get an impression of how it looked like the youth and children engagement at COP21 World Climate Conference in December last year.
World leaders, this is a childish wake-up call. So we are here to give you the world's simplest lesson in climate change. This is what will happen to a planet with too much CO2.
I am very touched by your decision to choose this message for your t-shirts, because from the point of view, these three are not separate chapters, because there is a very, very compelling mandate, but there's also an imperative. There's a moral imperative, there's a technical imperative, there's a financial imperative, there is a political imperative, and finally, there is a generational imperative here. And from your point of view, these three are not separate chapters. They do come together, and they come together now. Thank for this very nice opening of Youth Day. I know we're going to be having many other activities today that I very much look forward to. Okay, your presence at the COP is important to remind us all, but it's also what you're doing at home, because that is where the rubber hits the ground. That is where you can really make a true difference. So thank you for both.
Children are the future, and it's for them and for their children that we are here and that we work 24 hours a day to try and secure an ambitious climate movement here in Paris. And we're writing history. So many communities are suffering. So many people are suffering. So many behind the refugees around the planet that are seeing the worst of the effects, and it's only going to continue from there unless action is taken today. And now more than ever, we have the opportunity to take action. Because now is the time that our generation stands up to be leaders today. Let's create the right partnership. Let's build the correct future that we want to pass on to, that we're proud of passing on to future generations. Thank you.
This is not just a COP, this is the COP of your generation.
Just a few words to say how much France is proud to receive COP21. And de saluer Cristina Figueres, who is making a fantastic work, a huge work, to make from this COP21 a real success.
So I want to show you how our young people going to be if we continue in the same path that we are right now. Was that desk? Yeah.
Okay, now I hope you've seen some things. Unfortunately, we don't have a screen. So now I would like to present Timothy here. I was joking, there's one person, young person on this panel. But I feel somewhat connected. Through our children, we are connected also to the young. It's the same. It's a new generation coming up. So, Timothy, like to present YOUNGO and announce also his reporting on this session as well.
Thank you, Angelica. And it is good to have an intergenerational representation on the panel, because this is, of course, an intergenerational challenge. As Angelica said, my name is Timothy Damon. I was elected in Paris as one of the 2 new focal points for YOUNGO, which is the official youth constituency at the UNFCCC. I'll clarify that my comments today are my own and not on behalf of YOUNGO, but what I will present is based off of our work in Paris that is still ongoing. And in terms of reporting for this session, I would like to propose that we have the following structure. That for each of the questions, and we'll be covering 6 different questions that Miroslav will present for you, but that for each of these, as we're having our discussion, if participants would flag which number of questions, so that I'm taking notes and it'll help me to be able to capture your input and then organize this toward the end into our summary report. And I hope that that will give us a very useful, practical document so that we don't leave this room having, oh, that was a nice fluffy discussion. There are lots of those that happen. They happen all over throughout these kinds of meetings, but we'll have something very tangible and we will present that back to the closing plenary. And this is something that I would share back with YOUNGO, and we have a lot of projects, and it will really give us all something to work with. And also I would like for you to frame in terms of challenges and solutions within each of those questions. So you might say, this is a major barrier on this question, but here's an area where we could have a solution. Thank you so much. That will make my job as rapporteur a lot easier and will help us quickly come up with a productive document.
Thank you very much. That's great. Actually, and Miroslav is going to present questions.
Yes. So as you've probably seen from the announcement of ECOSOC Youth Forum and the announcement of this breakout session, there is a concept note. So it's really an attempt to have a very structured discussion and really something that builds upon what has been done in this field in the previous months and years, and really build something up in the context of the SDG framework, especially also SDG 13, taking urgent climate action on climate change and its impacts, but also working, elaborating concrete input to the processes and events and decision-making activities in the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change process framework. And therefore, we have together the organizers and the members of the UN Framework Initiative on Children, Youth and Climate Change developed 6 questions for this breakout session. Question number 1 is, what can young people contribute to the successful implementation of Sustainable Development Goal 13, climate action? Question number 2, what tools and resources are needed for youth to implement climate action? Question number 3, how can we set up a youth-focused resource mobilization and multi-stakeholder engagement support mechanism for climate action and SDGs implementation? Question number 4, how can we engage a new generation of young global philanthropy leaders in climate action? How can we use, question number 5, how can we use the power of art, music and social media to engage young people? And question number 6, what recommendations do you have for youth to move forward in 2016 and beyond in the context of UNFCCC processes and events to create a sustainable and climate resilient future? So these are the questions, and we will ask the presenters who are already pre-announced and also the contributors to the discussion to really say which question their contribution is addressing, so that Tim will have his report nicely prepared. And so as regards the next steps here and the structure of the breakout session, Angelica will now start with this first round of pre-announced presentation and also presenting the work of UNDP GEF Small Grants Programm. And then there we will also look on whether we have received contributions via social media, Twitter or Facebook, and that we include this as well. And then we will invite you to have additional presentations and responses to the questions. And then we'll also have a round of where we will try to prioritize these different answers to these questions, and then helping Tim also with this report. And with this, I give back to Angelica.
Well, first of all, I wanted to ask, of course, we'll have questions and discussions afterwards. Everybody is okay with this proposed course of action, the team report as a report, right? No objections. Okay, good. So then maybe I will start what we kind of prepared. We participants also prepared our own suggestions for these questions that from our point of view. And I will start, and then my colleagues will continue, and then everybody will be able to contribute later on. So first, I wanted to start. These are actually very interesting questions, and I gave it some thought. What I would like to say is not so much about challenges, but about how we more on the solutions, because we all know there are many challenges with climate change and youth. So first, what can young people contribute to the successful implementation? My experience lies in the on-the-ground work, more on the community level, and that's what we support. Our program supports community-level NGO work in 151 countries, and youth is one of our priority groups. We have an interesting publication when we presented in. I wrote a few copies here, but you can also download them on our website. That we presented in COP20 in Lima, which details a case study, basically several case studies, which is just few examples of how youth took action in their communities with the support of our funding, of our grants, how they did things like converting waste oil into biogas, drinking water, producing drinking water with wind energy, calculating carbon inputs, footprints in their communities, and educating others on how to reduce it, took leadership on mangrove conservation, etc. There are many examples, and there are more examples throughout our program. So to this, I think, if you're all members of youth organizations, to try and advocate for existing funding that exists, to advocate that it's channeled to the youth organizations, at least earmark something. So something like what we have in our program, that we give priority to youth applications from youth organizations. So that's one. And second, to try and take leadership in your community to see what you can do specifically. Of course, not everybody can work locally, some will work globally in the end, but I think from my point of view, the action is local. So you take leadership in your community, in your city, in your school, and start something that may later grow into some global initiative. What tools and resources are needed? So I already mentioned that, yes, dedicated funding, I think, is needed. Hopefully, many cities and many programs, they have something. They have something directed to climate change now. It's a popular topic. So advocating that it has a youth component always. Always advocating that it has a youth component. I think that makes sense. The multi-stakeholder mechanism, I will pass because it doesn't relate so directly to our work, and perhaps other colleagues can talk about that. And also, how can, another question is 5, how can we use the power of art and music and social media? I have very interesting examples for COP21. We helped to sponsor a youth video competition for COP21 with UNFCCC. And actually, it was very, very interesting what videos came from the young people. It was over 150 videos. And I looked at all of them, and it was very interesting. The youth participants were really impressive, and the winners were amazing, actually. And with their speeches and their understanding and everything that followed from them winning this competition was actually amazing. I don't know if any of you have been in Paris or saw it, or maybe saw it online, but they were really impressive young people who did action in their communities, in their lives, and showcased that, and then were able to share with others. So yes, so this is one example how social media can draw attention in the major global events, draw attention to youth activities. And another one actually grew from one of also COP21 activities that we supported in small islands, both in Caribbean and Pacific regions. And in fact, the youth in Caribbean, it was Caribbean Youth Environmental Network who took leadership on that, and they're on different islands. They came up with songs, poetry, artistic readings, arts, various things, secured a lot of support from the communities. And there was a very interesting campaign called 1.5 to Stay Alive. I don't know if anybody heard that. There was music, art, and everything. Also was in Paris, was showcased in Caribbean Pavilion. And actually that advocacy also contributed to the fact that Caribbean Pavilion even existed. So, and then they connected with it turned out that Youth in the Pacific did something similar. They also did art, and produced a song, and so they connected and started thinking of some global campaigns together post-Paris. So yes, so you can use again some dedicated, and the funding was really small. You know, our grants are maximum $50,000, and they were smaller than that. So even small dedicated funding to support this youth initiative can make a difference. And they were really, again, I met people from St. Lucia, from Caribbean countries, and they were really committed young activists who made a great impact. They gave interviews and at COP21 and so on, and I think that it also played a role in a way. I mean, of course, not only the activism played a role in the successful outcome, but still, I mean, I think they were very visible. And yeah, so in terms of moving it on. So my view is there's 2 points, that activities where you are on the ground, from local to regional, to country to regional, etc. And hopefully a dedicated funding, even from existing programs, to youth initiatives. So I think that's very important to start from. Because from the existing funding, so advocating for giving priority to youth. So that's a very short presentation. Of course, you're welcome. Some of you are welcome to take the brochure, the publication, and then of course you can download it as well. And well, I hope to continue discussion. The next is Max.
Yeah, unfortunately, Max could not come, but he asked me to make some advertisement for their work here. They sent also a video, but as we don't have here the equipment, unfortunately, we cannot show it. But the Max Tabizo Atkins is from the Connect for Climate program from the World Bank, and it's a very good program. They've had recently also an Action for Climate documentary film challenge. It's really a great way to harness the creative potentials of young people so that young people communicate the challenge of climate change to the broader audience, which often does not that well understand what is at stake. And so the role of young people here in this kind of activity is very important, and Connect for Climate is helping there. You are welcome to visit their homepage. It's www.actionforclimate.org, and that's about the World Bank and from Max.
Let's contributions from Juan Elias.
One is here. So I guess he might come later. One is from the United Nations Environment Program. They have also initiatives on how to get young people engaged, and it's good for you to know about all these opportunities.
It's Melody Shan from China. Oh, okay. Is that what's your name?
Melody Chen.
Melody Shan. Okay.
Hello everyone, and thank you for coming as well. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm representing the NGO Youth Think from China. We were founded in 2009, and our motto is believed to help youth empowerment through network and sharing and youth action. So basically, how we do it is through some pilot project with the youth and the network and partners. So, for example, one of our initiatives, we organize the youth delegations to UNGA conference, or such as the recent COP21 conference in Paris. And besides that, we're also very active in China, organizing social competitions. And one of our initiatives is called Think Initiative in China. We have we call for the angel investor coming to design the program, and they offer opportunities and some sort of guidance and mentorship to help young competitors of youth delegation to showcase their ideas and also be able to make it more mature, and later on at the stage to join the later stage of a competition, and even to seek for some kind of extra help and funding to realize their ideas. And echoing that kind of concept, one of the things we're promoting in China is to think about the SDG, and in terms of our goals, what can the youth participate and also utilize these innovative ideas and energy to support the goal, and also to realize that as a project in China, also share with the global communities. Besides that, in China, we are also the point on doing the My World survey. So that has an impressive ripple effect of more than attract attention of 2 million audience of netizens online, and the youth are actively following the news, and this gives the chance for people to vote what are the subjects that they care, that they believe through these subjects that will make the world a better world. So these are some of the cases, and if you have more questions, I'm happy to share. Thank you. I'm also willing to learn more from you today.
Thank you very much. The next is Eva Maria from Equator Initiative. Maybe you can talk a little bit about Equator Initiative, which in itself is unique.
Yes. Thank you, Mira and Angelica, for inviting me to be here, and I'm happy to be talking about. And what we do, well, it's a partnership that recognizes and promotes best local sustainable development solutions that are good for people, for nature, and to build resilient communities. So of course, it's very relevant to what's being discussed today, climate change. And in a nutshell, the Equator Initiative has become quite popular for the Equator Prize. It's been granted every 2 years through a global call for nominations, where initiatives mainly driven by indigenous peoples and local communities are recognized by the United Nations. And these are groups that are organized and through collective action use their natural resources in a sustainable way to ensure the socioeconomic development of their community. So they're promoting sustainable development within their communities to reduce poverty in their communities. And once we have all these winners, we create a network, we then work with this network, we build their capacities, and we document what we consider best practices from the Equator Prize winners. So it's the recognition of good practices, the peer-to-peer learning exchanges, the community dialogues, learning from each other, and documenting these best practices. And of course, when selecting the Equator Prize winners, youth is a big component. It's not a selection criteria per se, but we recognize collective action. And in our description of collective action, youth are part of that. So the elderly, youth, and women are very important when recognizing these initiatives. And of course, well, when we're talking about the Paris Agreement and SDG 13, focus on climate change, there's a lot of focus on access to information, capacity building, education, public awareness. And this is something that a lot of the groups that we work with do. And this is why it's going to be a little bit of a different presentation, I think, from some of my colleagues here on the panel. I like to focus on 5 case studies that have been documented by the Equator Initiative that focus on really an implementation of SDG, but taking youth into account and thinking of climate change in every element of the work. And of course, for all of us here, we know youth are the future. Climate change affects current generations. It will affect future generations. But we're also very aware that in order to empower youth to take an active role in policy making and negotiation and advocacy, youth needs to be educated. Youth needs to have access to basic services, to health, and be able to attend school. And in a lot of the communities where we work and a lot of the communities that we recognize have made an effort for this to happen. So for us, the first step to be able to engage youth is to be able to have a youth that is educated, engaged, and is not otherwise compromised going to the forest to collect wood or otherwise compromised going to the rivers to collect water. So my first example of this, of some of the challenges that eventually become solutions, is in Nicaragua, in a place where, of course, climate change has exacerbated food insecurity, but mostly water insecurity. And here, this group called Alexander von Humboldt Center has guided the community in the use of local technologies for water management. Of course, they've also provided education, awareness raising on the importance of watersheds. But most importantly, they have allowed women who would normally go take water from the river to be doing other things. They've also promoted eco-stoves and solar stoves. Of course, we know this limits the destruction in the forest with climate change impact, with a health impact. But then this also stops the girls, mainly girls in this particular community, to going to the forest. So this initiative is allowing girls to go back to school because they no longer have to spend all of their time with these other children. And then my other example of this particular case, in this area where we're promoting education for them to be able to actively engage, is in Bangladesh. And during the annual monsoon season in Bangladesh, some of you might know, a third of the country is submerged in water. So of course, children cannot attend school. And an initiative called Shidulai pioneered a fleet of floating schools, libraries, health clinics, training centers, equipped with wireless internet access. The boats are fitted with solar panels that power computers, lights, and medical equipment. And they provide education in flood-prone areas, so they literally pick up the kids in the different areas, they stay in school, and then they take them back. And they're also teaching their parents. So in the afternoons, the parents of the students get on the boats, and learn about different sustainable land management techniques, making the rivers cleaner and making their land more fertile. So at least from our point of view, the first lesson is in order for youth to be engaged, has to be educated, and it has to be able to participate actively in the implementation of the goal. So of course that's a challenge. So then my other points are more on the solution. So once you have an active, engaged, educated youth, of course we all know youths are drivers of change. They organize ourselves. I mean, we have a full room of organized youth, and can change the way the communities see sustainable development and the challenges of climate change. It can change their parents, little by little, promote advocacy in the regions where they live. So of course, leadership is key in all of these. So my first example is from a group from Chad. The group is called Chadian Volunteers Association for the Protection of the Environment. They focus on environmental education and social development. And what they do is they combat land degradation and desertification, so extreme land erosion in Chad. And the main aspect is they teach you how to fertilize the soil with locally available organic compost, how to use trees as hedgerows, living fences. Every year they have an online environmental contest featuring information, games, helping youth learn about deforestation, about climate change. A lot of that's been talked about, deforestation, and names of plants and trees. If you're going to reforest, you need to know the names of plants and trees, what they do, the advantages of each. They also created educational celebrations around National Tree Day, World Environment Day, lots of celebratory days, and use of multimedia, film screenings, debates, demonstrations, competitions, and appearances on national TV to educate youth. So there's a group working directly with youth, and the youth learning these sustainable land management practices. They train them in agroforestry, tree planting, as I said, and peer-to-peer environmental learning programs where I teach you, but you have the obligation of teaching another one. So they come in, they're trained, but they have to go out and teach other youth as part of that program. So in French, it's savoir pour sauver, so learning to save or for life. And they also mentor youth to become UN young parliamentarians. So they like to sell themselves as preparing the future leaders of Chad in every single way, those who remain in those rural areas, but those who migrate to urban areas. My second case study is from Niger, the Instrument of Peace School. So they focus on innovative natural research management strategies. And it's quite interesting. So what they do is where somebody would see hyacinth, water hyacinth, as an invasive species, here they take it and they build a local solution. So they create briquettes that are used as fuels, that are used as compost, and they teach the youth to do this. And through this educational process, they engage youth troops in singing, dancing, and storytelling to inform and educate the general population. This is normally carried out in local languages and includes the human rights issues and human rights and women's rights perspective. So here they teach the adults in their communities how to create these bricks, how something that they consider an invasive alien species can be used to reduce deforestation, to clean up the river, and how it's good for the environment. And then just very quickly, my last case study is from Vietnam, where youth are being engaged in an initiative to preserve biodiversity, to preserve different kinds of bamboo. Of course, it has an environmental focus to it, but the whole idea of engaging youth, which is something that you of course know, is that youth is an effective conduit for spreading the organization's conservation ethic and passing on to their parents the values and the lessons from environmental management. So really to conclude, all of these initiatives of the groups that we work with youth in two ways. They understand the value of educating youth to be messengers, and they understand the value of educating youth to be drivers of change. And they use to create activities, they're used to engage with other people in the community, to change the way they parents view sustainable development and climate change. And I guess my advice after sharing a little bit of our work is you are advocates of change in your different countries, in your different organizations. These are groups in rural areas who do not have access to communication, necessarily social media, but they are changing at a local level. And people like you here in the cities can really be a driver through your advocacy efforts, through your fundraising, potential volunteering in some of these places to help promote these best practices, which they know that they're using you to promote and to replicate.
Thank you very much. Sorry to have been short with fascinating examples, but you can find more similar stories in our publication, but we have to give word to other people. So,
Thank you for having me. And it's wonderful to hear such nice and encouraging stories from all families today. I'm actually here representing my own nonprofit, Breakout, and what we are is a social network. It's a social network that allows organizations, including youth organizations, UN bodies, governments, international organizations, to launch programs to youth around the world, and allows youth to work together on specific issues on those programs. So I guess the best way to describe it is through an example. I know we don't have I know we don't have slides today, but I'll just put up this one picture. So how it works essentially is, say you're a UN body, you want to do a program on water pollution. It can be difficult to reach students in 100 countries to get them together to work on water pollution at the same time. So with this, all you have to do as a UN body is log on, create a profile, or as an organization, create a profile, put up information about climate change, about water pollution, and then request an action from your volunteers or your students. So then all of your users will get paired for a video conference. So you can have students or your volunteers in Uganda speaking with volunteers in Mongolia or China or the US about their water pollution issues, discussing those issues, and then finally, the primary purpose is that they all get to go out and act together. So if it's a UN program on water pollution, you could ask, students in 100 countries to go clean their local lakes or rivers, measure how much garbage they collect there, put up pictures, and essentially report it together. So it can be used for anything. You could have programs being launched on climate change related issues. It could be a tree plantation. It could be lake cleanup. It could be something else, reducing energy consumption, for example. It can also be used for issues, healthcare programs. It could be a sanitation problem that you want to address, being an organization. And you could essentially crowdsource volunteers around the world to work together on that single issue and upload results. And I think part of the problem has been, when I was a high school student, for example, we'd all go out and plant a tree, or we'd paint a wall, and it was very local and it was done. But I think a lot of youth today want to do something truly global, truly international, that's measurable and tangible. And that's exactly what we're looking to provide here. I like to describe it as a mix between an app store and a social network in some sense, because you can go out and choose which programs you want to join, and then work with your peers around the world on that specific issue. We co-launched the first program with the UN Academic Impact that asked students to try and reduce energy consumption at their schools by 5% or plant trees. And we had a couple hundred students participate from Costa Rica, the US, Netherlands, Switzerland, Uganda, India, China, and the Philippines. And that was our pilot. And we're now revamping for a capacity of several 100,000 students to join. We're in conversation with a number of organizations, like UNAP, Amnesty, a number of others, about potential programs that they might want to launch. But we're also interested in partnering with smaller organizations that have strong impact that may not be able to expand so easily, but now can really amplify their impact by using this platform. It's free of cost to users. It's also free of cost to the policymakers launching the program. We have a really great advisory panel. We have a physics Nobel laureate supporting our cause, and our advisors include the Vice President of Law, Chevron's former vice chairman. We have Evernote's chief tech officer, and a number of others. So really, I'm here to ask you to make use of what we're putting together. This picture here is actually one from some students in Switzerland speaking with students in the Philippines as part of our last pilot with the United Nations Academic Impact. And this is actually just a map of where people connected. So, students in the Philippines were able to really talk and work together with their colleagues in Switzerland, put up their pictures, exchange views, and at the end they had nice statistics as to what was done. So if you could really, for example, get schools to reduce energy consumption by 5%, those small drops of water make a pretty big result. So we really encourage all of you to sign up. It's at www.protective.org. And I'm going to pass around actually cards because we're actually closed for the redevelopment, but we're going to open up registration for about maybe 48 hours so that all of you can sign up if you'd like. If you'd like to launch a program in your organization or a government, please come speak to me and we can talk about how that's possible. I'll be passing around these cards. Thank you.
That's very interesting. Thank you very much. And now this player chat we have this
I am way in the corner here, okay? And I think Blair is at another room. She had to move on. But let me just say that I've always found intergenerational work to be very useful. Some of you may know me. I created the Youth Assembly at the United Nations 14 years ago. And I've led and directed about 20 of those when we had the Millennium Development Goals. It was my hope that with intergenerational focus, we could capture the energy of young people and the skills that older folks who have been through a lot and come back and did in that with a mission here, a small state in Africa, South America. And in 2008, I met a young guy in Jordan who had never been to the UN and really wanted to come. And I brought him here. He was going to Malawi. He was my brother, probably a young brother, I guess. But I'm very proud to have brought him to the UN and many other people from here. Now who I think have become perhaps even more useful in their energy by learning more skills from those who have tackled some of these questions before. As a matter of fact, Miro is staying with me now at my place in what's called the Equator. And Miro and I were talking about revolution and how Bernie Sanders has been speaking about revolution. For those of you who are not American, he's running for the nomination here. And I went back to a lot of the 60s and 70s, early 70s music that I know very well, and some of which I was involved in writing. And revolution can move into a very ugly area. It can move into death and shooting, and perhaps we need a very different approach to a green revolution. And it's encouraging hearing some of what you're saying. It's also encouraging knowing that Miro has been very successful in putting together music competitions where young people are invited to use their creativity, something that really does open up new doors where we have not thought it possible to have great ideas in the past. I often think that young people don't really own anything. Most young people don't own all of their home, but they really own their understanding of culture. They know whether they like Lady Gaga or not. And they really own that. I think much more than older people do. And having culture be a basis of the work, as it was in the Youth Assembly, we often brought in arts groups as well as policy groups to speak at the Youth Assembly. I think was very helpful. The company I used to direct the youth was that led us brought groups of young people around the world to be culturally diverse. And that was also, I think, kind of useful to what we were doing. One of the things that creativity enabled was a way for us to look at solutions in brand new ways. Elot Diaz, some of you may know him, he really became well known during one meter of light. For those of you who don't know 1 meter of light, just very briefly, I don't know if I have a couple of minutes. Okay, look it up. Okay, on the Google, it's a great program where he's really created the opportunity to bring light into homes of people who have no electricity by day and by night. It's really a fantastic program. Another speaker who used this opportunity to create some really out-of-the-box ideas was Tom Stasi, who's used to create a TerraCycle. Look up TerraCycle.net. He's made a huge industry of recycling trash and making it very useful. The thing that I wanted to conclude with is that in August, I'll be running a new program that is somewhat similar to the Youth Assembly. The Youth Assembly became very generic, it became very costly, and it's not exactly a program that I would advocate any longer. But this program will be free and will have a certain focus each year. August 10, 11, and 12 will be the time of the UN's International Youth Day. We'll have the GA Hall, and Brian, I got a donor to back the program that will bring in 600 youth leaders from China in particular. I think as youth leaders start to grow in their BA and master's programs, they're starting to ask, so who is the UN and what are my responsibilities in such a great, large, and growing nation as China? And we don't see that many Chinese people in great numbers at these events. Youth Assembly starts to bring in 300 each year, but I wanted to make that a focus this year. Next year, we're going to look at a focus of how civic tech, the new kind of social entrepreneurship, could affect the UN interns and fellows in order to enable them to learn more about new technologies that bring the opportunity for them as interns and fellows here at the UN to add more success to organizations and agencies that they serve. If any of you are interested, before Zagola is in the back here, I know Eo probably has a list. You can give us your name and email, and we'd be happy to invite you. It's a cost-less event, and somewhat similar to this, and there will be plenaries and breakouts, but we'll probably also be celebratory and the event will be around the International Youth Day. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. That was very interesting. Actually, I'm sorry to use my just for 1 minute. Your contribution made me think there's another solution. We need to encourage is also be mentors to some extent. We were all once young, and somebody helped us, brought us in UN or somewhere else. And I think it's also responsibility for existing programs and organizations to mentor youth leaders. And also youth organizations to help them to participate and so on. So I think that's also a solution because we all have children, nephews, nieces, and young people in our families and also our communities. And I think that people who will come to our work, our interviews, I think it's our responsibility, otherwise there will be nothing left for us. So I think that now Miroslav will make this contribution.
Thank you very much. So my contribution is to the question number 3. How can we set up a youth-focused resource mobilization and multi-stakeholder engagement support mechanism for climate action and SDGs implementation? And the point I want to make is that this needs a systemic approach. So it's really not possible to really provide meaningful and rewarding lasting youth engagement in this SDGs implementation if there are not really different stakeholders coming together, different United Nations organizations coming together, and also the information and communication technology preconditions set up. And here our organization, IAAI, International Association for the Advancement of Innovative Approaches to Global Challenges, the name is already a mission statement, has its systemic solutions, and we call it the Youth Engagement Support Mechanism, YESM. And this is something we want to get integrated into the United Nations system, into the UNFCCC process, in the run-up to the COP22. And this system includes a resource mobilization component. It's a blended finance platform which connects official development assistance money and also global philanthropy money with local resource mobilization by communities and also market mechanisms. Then another component is the information and communication technology infrastructure. We have explained these, elaborated these dimensions of youth engagement at the conference in 2014 in Klagenfurt, where we've had the conference Sustainable Development, Innovation and Youth, building the knowledge base and information and communication technology infrastructure for youth engagement in sustainable development action. And then we need capacity building and public awareness raising. We are working here with the United Nations Alliance on Climate Change Education, Training and Public Awareness, and the Joint Framework Initiative on Children, Youth and Climate Change. And here also our initiative, Patrick has mentioned it, the Global Challenge of Youth Music Contest is a very good instrument to get young people engaged, to have an edutainment approach, entertaining young people in their engagement in climate action and sustainable development goals implementation. We ask young people to produce music video clips about what they think sustainable development means, what climate action means, and then we organize online voting and jury voting, and we have brought two winners, one from the US and one from Indonesia, to COP21. We've organized there a show, and the plan is at the COP22 conference to have a similar show, but much bigger with celebrities engagement. And European Broadcasting Union is our partner there. They have said if we are able to set it up on a high quality standard, they will be our distribution partners globally, so that it can be really brought to every living room, so to say, these topics. And this is then also the stage where we hope to be able to attract new global philanthropy leaders, because this reduction of inequality within and among states, this is one of the big topics that also very important for young people, because young people see there are no resources for them, there are no new jobs, no income opportunities, but this needs to be changed, and we have to motivate and encourage those wealth elites to really on a massive scale to provide resources for youth engagement and also for young people to work on this SDGs implementation as micro-social entrepreneurs. Because if young people take action, society should reward it, it should provide a really living for this. And it's, if local communities cannot do it, or they can only do it partially, the global community should organize in this effort. And I'm convinced that the youth engagement support mechanism that we have developed, and you will find more details when you look at the Facebook page where this event today has been announced, and on our homepage, because it's too much to explain systemic innovation in 5 minutes. But it's an effort where we think that there's a huge need and huge opportunity, and also the YOUNGO constituency is working on similar topics, because it's clear this is what is needed. And if we join here forces, I think that very much can be achieved. And also the momentum from COP21 towards COP22 is now also a great opportunity to attract global philanthropy leaders and celebrities and media, that they will join this movement. And Patrick has said a revolution is needed. It's not really the revolution. Perhaps Ahmed is using the better term. It's a new global social contract. And this SDG is being a new contract where young people can be confident that the overall society, the global society, is shaping the world and governing the world in a way that young people have opportunities, they have a living, they have a future. And in this sense, youth engagement support mechanism is needed. It needs to be UN system-wide, and everybody has to contribute resources. It's not only about funding, It's about knowledge, it's about creativity, it's about donating time. And we have the plan, we have the music, so you're invited to work with us.
Thank you very much. It's very interesting how contributions sort of provided two sides of a perspective, a local perspective from us, and an Equator initiative on the local action, what can be done in each individual country and organization, and more global perspective from Ratif and from Miroslav, what could be done, and from also Patrick, what could be done on a global level to advocate and to draw attention to it. So it's very interesting, two sides of the coin. So now even we are looking to have a student, which is good. So we'll have a hi. Oh, sorry. Okay, so on this
Take the floor.
yes.
You have the stage.
Sorry.
Thank you. Sorry, I have to sprint a little bit from across the street, so a little bit out of breath. Too young, but not in shape. I work for the United Nations Environment Program, and I share with Miro as part of the World We Want platform. Probably you've heard of the World We Want campaign and the environment that we decided the SDGs. A lot of youth worldwide involved in the policy making, having their say in what they wanted to see as part of the SDGs, as part of the 2030. And now we have a chance to make it happen. So I think the goal is for you guys to join all the campaigns out there. Many of them promoting a lot of great things. I, for my part, can recommend the Give Me 5 campaign to go to action in prioritizing public spending for sustainable development and creating awareness of how much, for example, we spend as a global society in military and defense budgets. With only 5% of military defense budgets can actually fund the entire agenda 2030. I think that's huge. The other point I would like to bring to you guys today, I know it's been a long day, is the fact that we have the United Nations Environment Assembly, which unfortunately we haven't yet given that much space for youth. The youth participation, but we're working with the Office of the Envoy, and hopefully with you guys to ensure that the United Nations Environment Assembly, where we will have 160 ministers of the environment from all over the globe getting together to see how we start to implement the Agenda 2030, that we have your voice there and your ideas, because this is a place where we talk about solutions, we will share and collaborate, and then use this platform to really translate the global agenda into local action. So thank you so much, Miro, for having me, GloCha, Action Network, and for all of you to listen and share. Thank
So thank you very much. Now the floor is open for your comments. We're looking forward to hearing from you.
Yeah, I also have YOUNGO's.
Okay, sorry.
Whenever that.
Oh, sorry, now, please. Sorry about this.
A very quick note that I'd like to make for question number 1 is a lot of the action that youth are contributing is taking place within higher education institutions, especially if you look in the United States context. We actually have modeled after UNFCCC the ACUPCC, the American College and University President's Climate Commitment, which I personally work a lot on as an undergraduate. And that has a trickle effect into the local communities where these are happening, and that's definitely a way that youth are able to contribute as students, and you could even percolate that down into secondary education and down on the line from a bachelor's level. Miro already covered a lot for question number 3, but we definitely need this youth engagement support mechanism, and that's a beautiful segue into the meat of what I'd like to say, which is on question number 6, which is specifically recommendations for how youth can move forward in UNFCCC context. We did a lot of discussion around this in Paris because it's a constant struggle figuring out how as young people are we going to overcome the many challenges to effectively engage in these processes. And some of the creative ideas we came up with, in so many countries within that space, yes, it's a party-driven process, but youth are there. Why couldn't youth have their own dedicated space? You know, the United States has an exorbitant pavilion, other countries have their lovely pavilions. Why don't young people have a pavilion at the COP? There's really no excuse not to. We could certainly fill that space with many creative presentations, side events, and it would facilitate our engagement in that space. So we're right now working on figuring out what's our proposal look like for that, approaching funders and so forth. But that would be a huge step in the right direction for us. We're also working on a formal submission for the SBI 44, which is coming up. That's on the Bill of Work program. And that's going to include a lot of these proposals and overlap, again, with how we're going to engage and mobilize more support. Also in this, we need more youth delegates, official youth delegates with the party badge. We have a few of them. They're great to work with, and they're really indispensable to having the youth voice really make it into the process. And that's probably the largest frustration that we have is not even getting access. There needs to be some sense of your mouth being, your money being where your mouth is, in the sense of young people need that kind of access. And the Netherlands, Norway, a few countries have them, but there's no excuse, I would say, for every country not to have them. And I'll call out again my own country, United States. What excuse can we make for why we don't have more youth delegates? And that is something, while that proposal is specifically for the UNFCCC, why couldn't we also scale that up with a major group of children and youth and give them more access? And you're then also creating a conduit for these to be official ambassadors who can go at the national level and connect with more of these. If we're creating more grassroots youth NGOs and organizations, as we should be, then you're also creating a complementary piece to connect the dots all the way up to a state, subnational states level, regional level, and then also bring that up to national level and then international. Because that's something that the young people are already doing informally, but if we had more resources, if we had some more structured organization, we could do an even more fabulous job than what we do now as all volunteers who somehow have to find our way to get there. And as a final piece of this, even being able to get to these meetings is the largest barrier. And that's especially so for all of our Global South. They don't get their visas on time. They don't have funding to get there. I will say that graciously, the French government worked with YOUNGO to give us 50,000 euros to provide some scholarships to Global South. And we hope that we'll be able to continue that with Morocco for COP22. But that, again, is only one piece of this. And if we had more official youth delegates bringing programs, finance into this, more grassroots organizations which are providing young people who are educated enough to even understand the acronyms of what is going on in this process. A lot of my own work within Sustain Us, which is a US youth NGO that I've been going to the COPs with, is just taking new people and helping them to digest what this is that we're talking about. And there's a lot of knowledge that those of us in this room take for granted, and someone needs to make that comprehensible to the outside world that we're supposed to be representing and working on the pathway. So those areas of more dedicated facilities for youth at these meetings, and if you pilot that at the COP, maybe you can scale that out to other meetings, other UN processes. If you could have more scholarships to support youth, again, as focal point, and my Global South colleague focal point, we're not funded to do any of this. So it makes it that much more difficult for us to do our jobs and support the whole constituency. So again, some funding for staff and more structure, the Global South scholarships, and finally, again, more youth delegates who can officially get that youth voice. It's very frustrating as the young people that we have to find countries to be our champions. unfortunately, we've been able to do that, and for example, had intergenerational equity recognized in the Paris Agreement. It's the first time in the history of international law that that has happened, and it was 3 years of completely voluntary work from young people, but at the final wire, it was a couple of party badge young people in countries who were our member states or member parties of the UNFCCC who were making that happen. So putting those things together, and YOUNGO and all youth in the international space would be a lot stronger, able to participate.
Great, very interesting discussion, I think. Before we start open the floor, I want to remind you to sign up if you didn't yet for the sheet of the email, so for the future exchange of information. That would be very useful. And I would like to open the floor for more rich contributions from the audience. Because I'm sure you were nodding a lot during the presentation, so I'm sure you have a lot to say. Because whoever wants to start. Yes, please.
Thank you. I'm Miroslav from UNESCO. So I just want to inform you that in UNESCO we are also organizing youth forums. So in October last year, we organized a youth forum entitled Global Young Citizens for Sustainable Development. And that focused in particular on the implementation of the Agenda 2030 and in particular sustainable development and climate change. And of course, a strong focus in recommendations was the focus of culture and knowledge and education. And among the 5 candidates participants in the forum, 2 were selected in youth representatives from Argentina and from the Philippines to present the recommendations at COP21. And the recommendations from the youth forum will also be presented at COP22 and at UNESCO's General Assembly. In the conference, citizens were presented. And when it comes to knowledge production, I'm working for management of social transformation program, which in particular is focusing on social dimensions of climate change. Me, myself, I'm not really involved in that part of the program, but what we're doing is to work with certain research organizations, individual researchers, and a lot of partnerships with other universities also, and also with media like that. Myself, I can admit we work with certain science and other partners to sort of contribute with certain science findings to present them to policymakers.
Thank you very much. Maybe you can share experience with your organization.
My name is Cleopatra. I'm from South Africa. I'm a graduate student in City House. I'm doing diplomacy and international relations. But my undergraduate was I specialized in natural resources management as well as climate change, especially in South Africa. It's quite interesting to hear about the funding. I went to South Africa also very passionate and very dedicated. When I finished my bachelor's in 2009, I went to South Africa with passion. I started my own environmental organization on climate change, especially on environmental awareness, because in the communities, I'm from a small province called Polzer. Most people in developing countries have less knowledge on climate change issues, especially with women and youth. My difficulty at that time was so much dedicated because of my thesis and my research. The findings that I came to conclusion was awareness was a critical point at the time. I went back and finished. I went back to South Africa. The problem was access to funding. The access to funding in developing countries is an issue. The organization was good. I knocked to different offices, doing a lot of presentations. Yes, this is a very good initiative. But okay, now how do we go ahead and make this, a good project? Since you can see it. So all I'm saying is access to funding for youth, because I had staff, I had employed many active youth, and we were working. But the problem was access to funding. You know, to this office, no, there is no funds for the youth, and that demotivates you. Even you have a zeal and you have a passion. So this is an issue that I would like UNFCCC to look ads in a very thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I can only encourage the other programs also to dedicate funds to you specifically at that time, and that's one solution that they can.
Hello, I'm Elena. I'm from the University of Pennsylvania. I don't have an organization, but at least from the perspective of a college student here, like there are so many possibilities for funding, at least in a college. They throw money at you to do whatever, but I think a big issue is a lot of young people don't feel like they know what they could do. So I think a really useful thing is to have, like, it would have to be for each area or like specialized with just small things that people can do that actually make a difference, because there's all this climate change stuff like turn off your lights or something like that, but people don't feel like that is going to make a difference, so they just don't. And so it really just requires everyone working together doing these small things, but there has to be the motivation behind that people think that they're making a difference. So I found that's really difficult to get college students to understand, even though they're educated, that they have to participate as well in order to make a difference. And like, it'd be helpful to have a list of things that they can do, because we have a lot of passion, but just don't know where to put it.
Just briefly to answer to this, I would strongly recommend that you look up the homepage of the Citizens Climate Lobby. It's a very good network that tries to get citizens engaged in the processes and also in the lobbying for climate-friendly policies. And they have now at COP21 launched a citizens engagement network. And the aim of this network is really to connect locally those kind of young people who have the potential to contribute in the process, but also to complete local action. So I would strongly recommend to connect with Citizens Climate Lobby and Citizens Climate Engagement Network.
To your input, like in Switzerland, Switzerland, everyone say, Madam Socialist, and they are studying from environment and energy. And so, to say that in Switzerland, we have this project called React, you can go and React.ca. It's given an initiative that there's groups of students that started, and that you actually commit to some reductions in CO2 reductions in daily life. And then there's a competition against different teams. Then you come up with some of the bodies, and then who is going to make stronger reductions during 2 weeks period, and things like that. And that's also kind of companies that do. And for that.
I'm Phil Noyo. I'm from Mount St. Mary's University in Maryland. On question 5 about the power of social media and moving on forward with the generation that we're in right now, I find it very, sometimes with all these conferences all over the world, finding the funding is kind of hard, especially, trying to find the money to come up here all over the world. Plus, it also puts a damper on what we're trying to do. We're trying to make the environment better. We're trying to do a better sustainable environment. A lot of times, the fossil fuels and emissions from other places really kind of gets in the way of that. So one way we can use social media would be to maybe garner some better programs like having more online, more available resources, where you have the youth able to be in these web chats, these classrooms, they can be online at home in their own homes. We don't have to fly out and go all over the world to get all these places, in their own homes and be effective online socially. We're in a social network, and sometimes no need to come all over the world to do it, sitting in your own home in your own bed.
Yeah, hi, my name is Gail Davis, and I support UN ECOSOC Humanitarian Support of Youth Forum Partner. I love what I'm hearing from the people here about what can we do in our own home.
But I think one thing we have to remember, and I hope the youth don't tell me the same, but youth are youth. While the youth are the future, we all are the future. The most important thing is bringing all generations together to support the Sustainable Development Goals. I asked a 6-year-old if she knew what the Sustainable Development Goals were. He didn't. I asked a 16-year-old, a 26, and 36 outside these walls. They didn't know. Social media is great, but it keeps us online. There's something called meetup.com that's been around for years. It's set up to bring people online, take them offline. What are we going to do taking people offline? So that they're really doing something and starting in their homes. They have to start with themselves before you can say, I'm going to go get a community and a bunch of people to do this. And we all are adults. We have to motivate ourselves. It doesn't matter when we go to sleep and the TV is on. Set a timer on the TV. That'll help. So one of the things I think the question for us to ask ourselves, how can we come together with one another or with ourselves and be responsible for ourselves, share that with our families, our friends, our nieces, nephews, uncles, or whatever. But it does start with intergenerational. And that is youth. At least we're going to have an intergenerational that brings together across multi-generations, which means every generation, all of us of all ages, when we go back home, we share the cost all generations of our family. That's just my
So one thing I noticed when it comes to climate change, there's a lot of inequality. So the people who cause climate change, there's a lot of inequality. People who celebrate climate change, there's also a lot of inequality. And this means that the solution to climate change will have to be different for every single country. And I do like the idea of starting from the bottom up, because then everyone comes to their own background, their own knowledge, instead of having a big idea that everyone kind of generalizes as a single solution for the entire world, and that is not actually possible. So I'd like to see more customization, more grassroots movements, more support for people coming from their own backgrounds to express the inequalities and climate change and why it's important to take this into consideration when you implement solutions.
Thank you very much.
My name is Marissa, and I'm with the University of Toronto. And I think my answer probably fits in the category of two. I fully agree that this is an intergenerational problem, but I think one tool that we are missing, and or that youth are missing, is recognition of your voice and all of your voice, and an important voice. So I went to Northern University as well, and so I feel a lot of the things that the representative from YOUNGO already mentioned. There are so many youth again there, but it's still hard to talk to people. It's so hard to influence policy if you're not in the room. So we walk there and observe their badges, but we don't really get a say in anything that goes on. I think that's really important because for students who are studying this right now, we understand the issues in a new way. And so, yes, it's intergenerational. I really agree that we need to work together and we need to find a way to build relationships between generations, but I think that starts with first building recognition that youth matter.
I'm from Toronto, Canada, as well. I'm from Foundation for Environmental Stewardship. First highlight what we do, and then answer to number 2 of the questions. So we go to high schools and universities educating young people on the reality of climate crisis, and then help students brainstorm solutions for their school and community, and mentor the key student leaders along with the teachers to actually carry that out in the community. But coming from a developed country, such as Canada, what I find very useful and effective is really changing the values that are permeated through the culture of young people. And those values is that there's always cost to doing justice. And if we're part of the developed world, we can understand about climate change, we can talk about climate change, but we've actually got to stop spending, stop buying useless stuff, reduce what we're using. And that's actually hard. And we've done all kinds of surveys with the students that we've worked with, and they're like, yeah, I really understand. I see the pictures and videos of the Pacific Islanders and the coastal regions and how they're suffering. But when I directly put it together, like, should I get this product or this product? And if I get this, then probably it'll impact them less. But I want this, and it really is a tangible problem. Yeah, it is a really tangible problem to people who were always raised up in the developed world, who've never had concern for anything like this in their life. So yeah, this changing of value is something we really like to bring in light of the inequality of climate change, and really understanding that climate change is about the dignity of the person and the human rights of the person, and really looking at the well-being of humanity in light of climate change. So yeah, that's something we're doing. And what we struggle with, aside from the obvious funding issue, is the education material. I know UNEP has the GEO5 for youth, and that's been very useful. UNFCCC has amazing graphs. World Bank has great data and interactive data, but they're geared towards academia, and it's very hard to bring that to high school students to make it more easy to communicate and easy to teach. And I'm wondering, maybe I don't know, maybe there's some artists or graphic designers and educators who can work together in coming up with classroom-friendly material, education material that could be used in all the countries around the world, especially youth advocates and youth educators, especially from the global south, struggle finding good material to present. At least in the global north, we can get funding and hire graphic designers to use it for one event. But it's very, there's big inequity in that. Also, I wanted to just comment on the YOUNGO, having the national delegate coming from Canada about 10 years ago. The Canadian Prime Minister personally canceled the youth delegate system. So we've been working on trying to reinstate that with the new government that came in. Hopefully that will work out, because it is so important to have actual youth delegates in the seat talking about it. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I'm Anna. I'm from Boston University. And I just wanted to speak on the same note of changing value, because I think it's really connected to what the student from the University of Pennsylvania was speaking about how college students don't really know where to funnel their motivation and passion, because I think that is kind of connected with the values and what we teach kids in school. So off of that, I was lucky enough to grow up in a primary school that offered a class called health management. We learned how to deal with stress and how to live a healthy life. And I think that we should also be trying to implement something like that in all schools concerning values or the environment, because really that's where you learn it when you're young and your mind isn't really set yet. It starts at home and then it continues in school, and really that's where the youth can begin even more, because although youth right now is more of the focus of the 18 and 25-year-old gap, I don't think we should underestimate the younger generation.
Yeah, sorry. So I just wanted to first of all say the theme that I hear almost every week in Canada and I think you're right. I think the problem is that most people outside of these walls don't really know how to get involved, where to get involved, what to do. And I think that we need to come together. There's no other solution. It can't be a UN only solution. It has to be a solution. Anyway, I really hope you guys will pick out some of the programs. That's exactly what we're trying to do. We will be having programs with UN bodies.
Thank you.
I just have like 3 main points. So for all of you who say you have the passion, you're finding, you have the passion, you have the funding, you don't know where to channel that into. It's a little bit of propaganda, but if you go to www.equatorinitiative.org, we have an online database of over 200 case studies of the communities that we work with. And the thing is, you speak the language, you understand the jargon. They have a lot of the traditional knowledge and a lot of the local solutions for these global challenges. I'm sure an exchange between you and them would be extremely valuable. And if you have funds and you're looking for a place to channel them towards, if you would like to be connected with any of these communities that you happen to do their case study online, I would really encourage you to do so, not for us, directly with them. And I'm sure the actual exchange, the knowledge exchange, a potential funds exchange would be extremely valuable. And then as it goes for resources, very short 6 to 8 page case studies that show a lot of these local solutions to global problems. So I would encourage you to read them as class material, as case studies for thesis, anything that you might find them useful for. We do have professors from different universities that use them to share them with the students. And then I guess my last point was, I am technically here to share the voice of these local communities who are not able to be here at the UN or in colleges around the world like you have the opportunity to be doing. So I would encourage you to use your voices to help the voices of local communities and indigenous groups around the world to have their voices heard in these fora and these spaces. You are looking for funding, you're also looking for opportunities, but there are a lot of youth who do not have this access. So I would really encourage you to travel, meet the locals, engage with youth wherever you go, and look for opportunities to engage your passion, your energy, and potential funds from your
Okay, so we have 4 young ladies on this side. Can you start from this? Can you remind us?
Thank you for my program and the development of Czech Republic, but also a law student. And I have like 3 very good points, and that's first concerning the education program. That's my point of view. The thing is that like when you want to have like real awareness of climate issues, you need to like you need to get on the internet and read about topics, articles, and associated and part. I mean, inside of my bubble, university students, yes, everybody knows that, but otherwise, one would like read gossip on the internet or whatever, you know, like sports or whatever. But it's not like that. It's part of everyday education things that are going on in schools. And it's so crucial for governments to need to do more environmental and also our and other like political questions in the educational curriculum of the schools. Second thing is like from more like legal point of view, there is a very few region in Czech Republic that has like really awful environmental problems. There's the level of pollution is so high that it's like really dangerous to the health. The thing is that when we were talking to people like in that sense of environmental education, they do not know their rights. They don't know that there is some sort of like satisfactory payment available from the government. They can sue the government for infringing on their environmental rights, which are pretty much the law in Europe. And the thing is, like, rights awareness is what then culminates into political will. And political will is what we need in order to leverage these things and bring up some change. Because unless environmental concerns are part of our like daily political life, then nothing is ever going to change. Because I don't know how it works in like your countries, but for me, like the only Czech political party that actually does have environmental comments is sort of considered to be extreme. Because these are the people that don't want like nuclear power and everything. They have very like extreme positions, and it's not like an everyday thing that we talk about in politics, like we talk about education. So that's very important to like make it normal for people to talk about what they can or cannot do with the environment and what are their rights. And that leads to the final point, and it's like the short point is there's still like this kissing hearing perception of politics that it's something secret, something hidden, you know, that we have this diplomatic negotiation. And though this has a tendency to change like that, it's still like there and it's still like very stigmatized to this point. So the parties should like need to be more open to make more use of their system, and that is the force that then generates the youth delegates. Because yes, we only do youth delegates, but these are against youth. Okay? We can't just like go to school and randomly pick kids and say like you are against youth delegates. No. You need to have like generating political force in our life. And that's like a big issue that the governments and the political parties especially need to think of. The engagement of civil society is crucial and also very important.
Thank you very much. My name is Kiru. I'm from Platform Indians in the family. And actually, I get from Platform Indians group. I'm the part of the international newspaper on climate change. Just from all what I'm hearing, I'm following the negotiation with the US. Then I know that what the issues are expecting is really not caring as well as saying you don't have to pay back and taxes. But I think now is the right moment that the youth can take the lead, especially on the climate change or environment issues. Because so we have the adoption of the SDG this year and also the Paris Agreement we just adopted. But that's how we can start to get involved. As she said, that we can only make you or you and how about the rest, but we do not get the chance to come at the international level. So that's the time how we can go at the national level, at the local level. And at the Paris Agreement, we know that it's the INDC, the national contributions from the countries who make the Paris Agreement to reduce all the emissions whatever to all these Paris Agreement things. So how we can make it work we need to go back to countries and ask the government, they get the engagement and they adopt the Paris Agreement. How we can make it work? Because anyway, it's not for them, but it's for the newspapers, the people generation that we are talking about. And if we didn't take the lead from now, we can deal with the impact later. So to take the lead and get the impact is asking the government how we can make all the global that even on INDC workable at the agricultural level, that can involve all the people who do not at the transport and all whatever, all how they can reduce the emission, how they can cross all this coal mining and all these fossil fuels, and how we can shift to the sustainable energy use, like clean energy, and that will be the goal at the national level and turning up at the international level with the youth constituency, then we can really make our voice heard and say, okay, at the national level, you have to do that, but at the international level, you have to implement it, or otherwise it's going to be our people who say it.
Thank you very much. My name is Heather Rodriguez, and I'm the youth delegate for the World Association of Girl Guides and Girl Scouts. There are Girl Guides and Girl Scouts in 146 countries across the world. And one of the main tools that I've been working with in my own community has been the YOUNGO Challenge Badge about climate change. And that stands for the Youth and United Nations Global Alliance, which is housed at Equator. It has many international partners, including the Girl Guides and Girl Scouts, and also other UN agencies. And yeah, I can definitely promote that as an awesome resource. It was recently redone just before the Paris conference, and it's very up to date. And there's a lot of great activities in there that can be used for children and youth. The age range for the program is between age 5 and 25. And all those resources are online in all different UN languages. And if you don't have access to the internet where you are, you can definitely contact YOUNGO and we will send you the resources and click on. Something else I've been involved with the COP conferences since the COP 15 in 2009. And something else that I've been doing more recently has been in my local community, working with high school students who are doing climate change related projects within the community through the Girl Scouts, and also attending board meetings in my community on issues of zoning, issues of wetlands, and issues of biodiversity. So to me, it's been really important that after having these amazing international experiences at the UN and being able to influence policy and have a role in this making process is to bring some of those skills and passions back to my local community. And at least in my community, very few young people are involved on the local level. So to me, it's been a fantastic experience to really engage with. Thank you very much. Very interesting.
Hi, my name is Kate. I'm a student at Pennsylvania State University. And my perception change is probably more localized solutions. So my 3 points are going to focus on that. I have 2 challenges that I personally face and that I'm hoping someone in this room might have insight on, and then one solution that might pertain to creating that personal connection, the wanting to act towards climate change on a personal level. My two challenges that I've been thinking a lot about are, especially, we spoke a lot about how students or the youth who have gone through higher education are ones who are very passionate, now have the knowledge to utilize and create change. But my worry is that, at least in the US, students immediately after graduation, after they obtain all these tools, are displaced out of the community, not only their home community where they were raised, but the community where they were educated, because they are driven by a job search, because there's education is so at such a high price. So I'm wondering if there are any incentives, or if there could be a collective push to incentivize youth at that pivotal age, right out of school, to go back to their communities where they do know the issues, and utilize the knowledge that they gained in that area. Because I think leadership at a localized area, community that you are ingrained in and have a network in, is probably where you can have the most impact, rather than being sent halfway across the country to a city that a student has no connection in, is there only to fulfill a job, and then change, your priorities have to be rearranged if you're trying to make money, if you don't have the time. So incentivizing you in a funding way to go back and prioritize making change or focusing on the issues first as a job in the community that they're in, rather than pushing them away to a separate community that they're not in. So that's a concern of mine. My second is models for sustainable funding. I myself, in my own community, am trying to create an organization, job positions, and the only thing that I can find are grants, which are a wonderful source. But instead of actually enacting change, I'm becoming a professional grant writer and spending all my time applying for grants to do good things rather than doing good things. So I'm very interested in hearing about any models that might have their community-based funding and are not based in grants. That might be utilizing local businesses, any models that really can uphold change in the community that aren't based on external funding, and that I don't have to rewrite every year. My solution pertaining to creating a personal connection to climate change action, I was a teaching assistant for a class that was a general education environmental science, so people who were not interested in science or climate change took this class, and rather than speaking statistics or showing really alarming videos and scaring people about stuff that's happening far away, it was based a lot in personal reflection and asking questions that centered around, like, what was your personal experience of water or soil growing up? And creating that personal story around a topic in climate that's being affected by climate change, so that if you have a personal connection and personal story, you're more likely to enact change in your everyday life. So they're funny questions to ask yourself at first, but really focus on that personal reflection. And that's something you can do from age 5 to 25, between that whole range, to really jumpstart and spark that interest in your role as a global citizen.
Thank you very much. Let's take the last round really quickly. Last round, hopefully you have a chance yet to comment. So I think you and the two ladies here, sorry, you already commented, so so these two young ladies, and then we will conclude.
Hello, my name is Sarah. I attend Boston University. And I have a couple of thoughts. The first, I would like to just kind of stress the importance of this issue, because I think it might be slightly overlooked. And that is that, yes, as an international community, we have made progress. I think the Paris agreements are wonderful, but generally speaking, they're not going to do enough. They're not binding, and the current targets are not going to keep the planet from rising more than 2 degrees Celsius. So going off of that perspective, I think the real question is, how do you get the international community to respond, especially as a youth, and what role is the youth's responsibility in trying to motivate their own government? And my own thoughts are really that a government needs to be motivated by the youth, because clearly they have not been motivated on their own. We have known about climate change and its impact since the 1970s, and this has not been solved or resolved, or nothing really comprehensive has been done to go forward. So my thoughts are that students need to become involved in the conversation from the get-go and need to be the ones pushing for policy from their government. And yes, it's good to involve them at the international level, to bring them to these talks at the UN. But at the end of the day, policy decisions aren't really influenced by the speakers that you have there. They're influenced by the policy of your government. And the nation is not able to change their policy based off of the speaker that they heard because they represent the nation and not themselves. So my thoughts are to involve youth as much as possible at the base level, and also to contact them at that base level. Youth are generally the way to contact us, I would say for my generation, is through social media. Every day you wake up, you scroll through Instagram, you scroll through Twitter, you scroll through Facebook. If there was a larger social media presence about the international issues, particularly climate change, I think we would be more responsive to it because it would be in our language that we use nowadays. Thank you very much.
Hi everyone, my name is Sarah and I'm a grad student at University in DC. I wanted to address number 4, specifically about philanthropy. In youth leadership and philanthropy, I don't think anyone else has really covered this. I'm sure some of you know about the Giving Pledge, which is basically a billionaire's pledge to give more than half of their wealth to charity. And I think us as youth, we need to engage this and we need to take on this issue. So instead of traditional donors and these traditional organizations kind of reaching out to billionaires and asking them to donate and themselves kind of channeling where the funds go, I think we need to engage people of our generation and wealthier people. There are a lot of wealthy people that are our age in Silicon Valley, as I'm sure in other global tech hubs. And I think we need to form coalitions and groups to talk to these people about the issues we're interested in, so that we can not only control the funding that we get and what we do, but also control where the funding goes and what we want to see.
Thank you. Super interesting idea. Okay, so I think due to the time limitations, we will complete now. I just wanted to just a few points, and then he will talk about the report, the points that he captured. In case he forgot something, you will remind him, and then we will close. I just wanted to thank everyone because it was really interesting and lively discussion, much better than usual panels. Because the young people here are more dynamic, because really people are interested. I'm really pleased to see so many people interested and covering, in my view, all of the points from high-level participation in international processes to domestic political action to on-the-ground work in the communities with younger even people, to local, to fundraising. Very interesting points. I think, I hope we can distribute the report afterwards so we all can take it up and think of how we can use these interesting ideas in our work. Whether it's programs like us working with youth, or Equator initiative, or you, the young representatives of the young generation working, and very interesting ideas on social media, on fundraising. So I hope that would be useful for everyone, and we will share it as widely as possible. There's something
I would only like to thank everybody and to say that if you have a little bit of a musical talent, then please prepare yourself. We will have a call for music soon, and it's really, music is magic, and it is connecting the hearts of the people beyond the national boundaries, religious or linguistic boundaries, and somehow my message is that music can really contribute to saving the world, and we have to act as a global community. And so if you have musical talents, please sing with us along a new song of global community.
Great. Let's now give word to Timothy to say what he, maybe to talk a little bit about what he captured for the report, the main points, and in case he forgot something, we can add it.
All right, thank you for those who specifically flagged a question for your comment and had a comment that was directly related to it. I did my best to plug in other comments that did not do that, but this is admittedly a little bit messy. So what I will do for after the closing plenary report back is actually clean this up, organize it, and then we can share it to the list of participants. So that will be the nice version, which is important to me. And I like
Everybody sign up to the list of participants.
so make sure you've done that or you won't get this. But for reporting back, here's the summary, sort of question by question of what was important, and I'll stop for a moment if anyone wants to add something in. And a lot of this, of course, overlapped. For question 1, we had a lot of really good examples about youth who are actually engaged in projects for sustainability, whether that's solar panels or education or other avenues. So for purposes of this report back, just acknowledge that there's a lot of good youth work that's already going on the ground for contributing to climate action. And I found it a particularly salient point that youth are not only the recipients of education, but they're also indirectly agents of education because, for example, my parents would know nothing about climate or sustainability if I hadn't brought it back from college to them. So all of these youth are contributing to action as well as benefiting from the education. Any other points on that? Excellent, moving on. Question number 2, we had a lot here on the resources, and I'll put more meat at the summary here, but we touched on youth need the education to enable them to be able to engage. They then need means of participation so that once they have that knowledge, they have that enthusiasm, where do they go with it? And so conduits would be NGOs at all levels, so local NGO, national, having youth delegates, making sure that we actually have a better political infrastructure to support youth delegates. You know, the Netherlands can have their youth delegates because they actually have a subnational political process to elect them. We don't have that in many other countries, and so there's even some more prep work to be done there. And importantly, they need recognition that their voice actually matters. Any other points to add on to that? Yes, absolutely, yes, thank you. And definitely the dedicated funding streams, that's extremely important. Seeing none, number 3. Question 3 boiled down to we need the youth engagement support network, and a lot of those measures we were just describing you would achieve through number 2. And models for sustainable funding was an important theme as well. And also thank you for giving us a point to have on the philanthropists. Question number 4, as I was going to say, we don't have anything for that, but no. I think if we're doing a lot of the improvement of structures and organizations that we talked about, that would exactly contribute to the very good recognition that we need better structures for approaching these philanthropists. They're there, the money is there, but you need to be able to get in contact with them. Number 5, this was art, music, and social media. Really good ones here. We had some concrete examples of the music competitions, of the video competitions, but really importantly, how social media is a means for substituting for the need to travel, and so making up for some of those capacity gaps. And it's also a way, I think, of providing recognition for the work that people are doing, so that you don't have that frustration of, oh, I'm in a vacuum, you know, what can I do? Oh, other people are doing this. So there's a lot of collaboration that can happen through that. And I think also the very good points about we need culture change among young people. That's going to happen through art, music, and social media as well. And also the creativity in terms of how we're providing educational materials to make them more accessible. And finally, UNFCCC context. That was, again, mainly my proposals on youth delegates, funding, again, specifically to bring youth to these spaces. But I also really appreciated the comment about bringing that back down to the national level, because that is where country positions are determined. And it's really about how do we connect all of these dots. We are doing great things internationally, nationally, locally, but how do we integrate those efforts? and that would really be useful for youth engagement in the universities.
This is great. I think most of the points were captured. You will have a chance to contribute more. This is just reporting to the panel. Plenary. Sorry, and then they will be shared, and you can make more contributions. And thank you very much for this great participation. It was very good to meet you all. And the forum continues, so I hope you will get a lot of useful information. Thank you.